So I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about experiential learning opportunities. U.S. research institutions will be using my institution, the University of Missouri, as kind of our base look at what kinds of opportunities these can be. So as we get started here, I'll introduce myself. My name's Ryan Griffin. I'm the director of the International Admissions Office at the University of Missouri. You'll often hear us called Mizzou, so I'll probably use those terms interchangeably throughout this. So just making sure you know that so no one's confused. And we'll give you an introduction to Mizzou before we really dig into our material here as well. So Mizzou, or the University of Missouri, is a large, comprehensive public research university located right in the center of the United States in the state of Missouri. You can kind of see us highlighted in gold over there on the map on the left. We have over 30,000 students studying with us at Mizzou. They represent all 50 of the US states, as well as from over 100 countries from around the world, so a very diverse population that comes to study with us. I mentioned we're a comprehensive university, over 300 different degree and certificate programs that students can earn, and those are a wide range of different areas that students can study. We're very well known for our School of Journalism. We actually had the first School of Journalism in the world. We also have strong programs in business, engineering, computer science, but many different areas. And so today when we talk about experiential learning, one of the things that makes Mizzou a great representative of this is that as a large research university, in fact, we're very proud to be a member of this group called the Association of American Universities, which is some of the top research and teaching schools throughout North America. We really try and emphasize students getting extracurricular and experiential learning into their curriculum. So for us, that's kind of baked into everything we do. At the bottom here, you see I have a point that says the Missouri Method. So that's a teaching methodology that we use on our campus that incorporates the idea of experiential learning, of learning by doing. So giving not only students that theoretical knowledge, but then having them find applications for that. So today, we're going to look a little bit about different types of experiential learning, what those can mean and how they can be incorporated into a student's undergraduate curriculum. We'll look at some of those opportunities specifically at the University of Missouri. We'll also touch on a little bit of what's happening the world over right now, how Mizzou is responding along with many other U.S. universities to the COVID-19 global pandemic. And then at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So I know most of you have probably already tuned into a few of these over the course of the online fair of the last few days. But if you haven't yet, please do put your questions into the Q&A section as opposed to into the chat box. And then at the end of today's presentation, I'll get into as many of those as I can. And any that I don't get to, I'll be sure to follow up with you after the presentation. So experiential learning. One of the main components of that can be undergraduate research. So at a research-intensive university like the University of Missouri, this is going to be something that is really part of our entire DNA. We have undergraduate research that's happening in all of our different schools and colleges on campus. We intentionally try and bring as many students into those research areas as we can. And it's something that is not always going to be, like we say here, just the test tubes and lab coats. So if you're studying in different areas, even if it's not some of the traditional hard sciences, you're still going to have opportunities to engage in these sorts of research projects. So we'll start by just spotlighting one area on our campus, and this is something that can kind of serve as a window into many different areas. But when we look at biochemistry, we know that this is kind of an interdisciplinary area of study. So on a research campus like ours, we don't want that knowledge that occurs in one laboratory or that's coming out of one academic department to be kind of sequestered there. The idea is to have that type of knowledge spread throughout all of the different areas on our campus. So being a large comprehensive research school, we have a number of different study areas: medicine, agriculture, engineering, vet med. All of these different things can add knowledge to the general basis, and those sorts of experiments that occur in one area or the knowledge that's gained there is something that we want to see pass through many different areas. I will point out here, and that I mentioned on the slide, that Mizzou actually has the largest academic nuclear research reactor in the US. So it makes us a leader when we're looking at things like nuclear medicine, radiographic isotopes, when we're looking at diagnostic radionuclear medicine, then these are areas that Mizzou's really seen as a leader. Mentioned earlier that it's not just for the traditional lab research. One of the largest research departments on our campus is our psychology department of psychology. So students here are really able to dig into a number of different research areas and have plenty of methods to actually present that material, including perhaps publication in scholarly journals, even at the undergraduate level. Furthering that, we have a couple of different areas across campus that really highlight all of our undergraduate research programs. So on campus, we actually have an office of undergraduate research that helps to coordinate all these areas. Every year, we actually lead a program with our state capital that's just about 50 kilometers from our campus to be able to show off all of the great work that our students are doing. Another area that experiential learning another project or another area for experiential learning for students can be build projects, design projects, and competitions. So the picture that we have here, this is actually our Formula SAE car that students in our College of Engineering, so our mechanical engineering students, are able to participate in. Obviously, they'll have some faculty oversight with projects like this, but it's students being able to take the knowledge that they've learned in the classroom and in the laboratory into a less formal setting and into a more practical and often more fun type of setting that they can work with. And as we put here, that these can often be competitions as well. So students that will have the ability to compete with other students on our campus, as well as across different campuses and around the world. So our College of Engineering has an incredible number of different build projects that students can be involved with. So depending on the type of engineering that you're studying, you're going to have a lot of different opportunities to take your knowledge and put it to a practical use. I know one of the fun ones for me, when we look here at our Mizzou Echo racing team, that's a solar-powered endurance racing car that the students on that project that come from our electrical engineering departments, mechanical engineering, they're able to design a car that then they've actually taken all the way to Australia to race across the desert against other universities from around the world. So lots of opportunities to show off your knowledge in really fun ways. Every year, our R. Reynolds Journalism Institute has a student competition. So students, again, that idea of interdisciplinary study on our campus, students coming from journalism, typically business, computer science, engineering, and IT, get together and are given a problem. All the students are essentially given the same problem, and then there's a competition to create some sort of a software or other application that can kind of address this problem. So for 2020, what we're working on right now, students are actually looking to spot what are called deep fakes. We've all kind of heard about as social media proliferates, the ability to alter photos or videos to make them look as though someone has said something that maybe they haven't. It's become a real problem for journalists, right? The ability to do this work accurately, to do it quickly. And so this is what some of our students are already tackling. Now, with this project in the past, the RGI Innovation Competition, students have actually created apps that have gone on to be featured on CNN and other news networks, and then are then sold in the Apple and other app stores so that they're actually able to see a revenue stream off of some of these. And mentioning that entrepreneur side, so at Mizzou, we also have our Entrepreneurship Alliance. If you've ever seen the show Shark Tank, then really this is kind of what we're looking at. Students that have different ideas for businesses, not just coming from our School of Business, but from across campus, are able to come up and basically pitch their ideas for the chance to earn startup money that's provided by the university. So a great opportunity for those students that know that they're wanting to get into business and already have a great idea, even while they're still studying at that undergraduate level. And then one last one that we'll look at here when we're talking about competitions. This is national college competition, so not just something that's specific to Mizzou. But at Mizzou, we're incredibly proud this year. We had 2 students who submitted short films and actually were selected to have theirs shown at the Cannes Film Festival. So of over 1,700 films, only 38 from across the world were selected, and 2 of them came from the Mizzou campus. So some really great pieces of artistry being done on our campus, and we're incredibly proud of the students that were selected. Another big piece of experiential learning can be internships. So taking your knowledge beyond the campus, going and actually being able to practice the skills that you're learning for your future career while you're finishing up your studies. So Mizzou has all kinds of connections, both locally, regionally, nationally, and across the world for being able to place students into different internships. Now, here we'll take a spotlight look at a student to kind of give an idea of what some of these internships can look like. So Mariana Hill's a journalist student coming from Brazil. So on our campus, she worked for the Columbia Missourian, which is a daily newspaper that's actually owned by our School of Journalism. So again, that Missouri method of instruction being put into use right there. She's already creating her portfolio for post-graduation. But then she's taken that off of campus. So a couple years ago for the summer, when she went back home to Brazil to go see family, she was able to land an internship there. Last summer and continuing on to now, she's been already writing articles for Forbes Brazil. So another great internship that she was able to secure. And I actually talked to Mariana a few weeks ago, and this summer she is going to be going to Phoenix, Arizona here in the US to intern with the Phoenix daily newspaper. So she's getting a lot of great experience even before her graduation. Our International Trade Center. So this is grown out of and is part of our MU College of Business, our Trulas College of Business. And so students and interns here are able to work on customized global market research projects for businesses that are from the state of Missouri, but looking to expand internationally. And I know I've personally gone to some of the final capstone presentations that students that have gone through our International Trade Center program have given. And many of them have actually resulted in job offers from the companies that they've been working with right on the spot. So it's an impressive thing to see that these students are able to help businesses growing out of the state of Missouri that want to have a global reach and want to be able to move their services and products around the world. And our students are able to do some of the firsthand research, create a plan, work with those businesses, and then, like I said, many of those internships can even turn into full-time job offers. One more we'll look at in the terms of internships. This is our journalism school. So they have several different internship programs in the US, in Washington, DC, as well as in New York. They've worked with some of the top news organizations in the US, in Washington, DC, so obviously very covering the political center of the country. Their New York office has actually had students be able to internship with the United Nations. And there's also opportunities around the globe. So in Barcelona, Brussels, London, these can be combinations of what we're going to talk about next. So study abroad, actually studying and earning credit, as well as doing an international internship at the same time and getting professional experience. So I mentioned study abroad, another key piece of experiential learning. And we know that for students that would be coming and joining us, for many of you, that would be studying abroad. But we also want you to still have a wealth of opportunities to see other parts of the world that you may be interested in or that may be part of your future career. So Mizzou has study abroad locations in over 50 countries around the world. So all sorts of options for students to be able to go. You see here that we also make sure that those are going to fit with students' degree programs. So the kind of maybe stereotypical study abroad year or semester that might not fit for some students if they're in maybe a very structured engineering curriculum. We found ways to incorporate shorter term programs. So students being able to do programs over their spring break or over the winter break that we have for about a month in during December and January. So finding ways for that to be incorporated into students' different curriculum, even if they're not necessarily the more typical study abroad programs that we might think of. One that we'll highlight here really quickly is actually our teaching abroad program here at Mizzou. So this is through our College of Education's Global Programs Office, and they provide students with opportunities to teach in several different countries from around the world. So it's an amazing program that really creates some cultural ties between the schools that they work in and the University of Missouri, and obviously the students that are involved and participate in this. But it's an amazing experience that we're really happy to see our College of Education making these sorts of connections. Move into now talking a little bit about on-campus housing and how we start to, here at Mizzou, incorporate some of your experiential learning from day one. So right as you move in your first year, we're going to have opportunities for you to already take your learning outside the classroom. So these can be through our residential academic programs, like our learning and living communities. So these are where students can choose to live with other students that are studying in a similar subject. So for example, all of our engineers may choose to live together and then be able to engage in programming that actually goes beyond just their learning in the classroom. Now, our most intense version of that is what we call our first year interest groups, or FIGs, F-I-G-S. This is where we'll actually make sure that you, your roommate, all the other students who live on your particular hall, the young men or women who live there, are all going to be studying in the same area. We're going to make sure that you actually have several of the same classes together in your first semester in your first year. And then we're going to actually have programming where professors from your area of study meet you in your living area to come and kind of explore a little bit deeper some of the topics around that that maybe draw you into that area of study. Now, things that we've found that this is really beneficial is that for students coming to a large campus like Mizzou, who maybe don't know anyone else that's coming into that first year class as well, are instantly able to kind of make it a smaller campus and really be able to engage and meet people that have a similar topic or similar academic interest area. We've also found that it really improves students' performance. Because we're scheduling students in similar courses, it makes it much easier to be able to form study groups, to be able to work together and kind of really get a grasp of the information that you're covering in your coursework. And on that note, we'll do another little student spotlight here. So this is Jingwing. She's studying business with us, but on campus, she's actually a resident advisor. So she lives in one of our residence halls and serves as a resource for some of the underclass students who are then coming in their first years. This is something that is an excellent opportunity for her to be able to learn leadership skills, for her to be put into a position of authority and responsibility. So learning how to work with students, being able to make sure that she is essentially helping to run the residence hall. An added bonus as well, for our resident advisors, they can have either discounted or even up to completely free housing on campus when they serve in those roles. When we talk about experiential learning and extracurricular activity, it's important to note that on our campus, you're certainly going to have plenty of time in the classroom, but then a lot of your learning is actually going to occur outside the classroom. So all sorts of organizations that you can get involved with, opportunities for volunteering or service learning, even some that can be for credit on our campus. So being able to serve in your area, areas of expertise that you have, but then also to earn credit while giving back to the community. And when we say community, we mean the community at large. So not only in our community of Columbia, Missouri, but across the United States and even around the world, we have service learning projects. We'll do a little spotlight on another way that students can get involved on our campus. So our Missouri International Student Council is an incredible group of students, both students that come from outside the United States, as well as U.S. students who have an interest in international relations and global affairs. So an incredible group of students that really help to serve as kind of the voice for international students on our campus. Amazing organization where students who decide to participate are actually able to get some great leadership experience, able to serve in the areas where their talents can most help the organization, and really to be able to be kind of the face of international students on the Mizzou campus. Mentioned earlier when we talk about service learning, so Mizzou is actually the school in the US that has the highest rates of participation with a group called Alternative Breaks. So Alternative Breaks is an organization that takes the typical vacations from school, so be that the winter break, the fall break, spring, summer, different types of break periods that school will have, and they actually have students be able to sign up, create, and lead their own service projects in different areas around the US and around the world. So it's a really amazing program, and we have students that participate and have really life-changing experiences as they work through the Mizzou Alternative Breaks program. take a quick glance at student employment here as well. So again, when we're looking at experiential learning, employment, even when it's on campus, can be something that really can further your academic areas and lead to you being better prepared for your post-college career. So US visas permit students to work up to 20 hours per week on campus. It's something that, depending on your area of study, you can actually work in an area that may be directly related to what you're doing. So the photo that we have here on the bottom from our award-winning Mizzou Rec Center, that's actually one of our former students in the center, Neymari. She was studying nutrition and exercise physiology, and she worked at our rec center as a personal trainer. So she was actually able to kind of be furthering what it was that she was studying, working in her field. And she's now actually on OPT working in Las Vegas, Nevada as a personal trainer. So really being able to get experience in the area that she was studying, that certainly has helped to lead on to her current career. Do another little student spotlight here to talk about different campus work. So Camila is originally from Honduras. She's studying biomedical engineering on our campus, and she actually works in my office. So Camila helps us out as well as helping our international center out with some of our social media. So we're incredibly happy to have her as part of our office. And we actually found her, if you will, through a program that we have here at Mizzou called Smart Work Mizzou, where we begin to, as soon as students are admitted, look for ways to see if they would like to be engaged in employment on campus. So we look at the areas that students have within their academic interests, within their professional interests, and then we try and match those with campus employers who are looking for students to come in and help them out. It's a way that we find that international students, again, are able to a little more quickly find themselves being feeling a part of the campus. So having that purpose, having a nice work experience, as well as then being able to earn some money to help defray their cost of the education. So throughout all of these different experiential learning opportunities that we've been kind of talking about, which sounds like a lot, there's a lot of opportunities. It seems like it may be too much to kind of keep your head around, but that's why on campus you're going to have a lot of different support areas. So depending on the different areas that you decide to go into, you're going to have people on campus who are really helping you make sure that you take advantage of everything that's there that comes to you. So on the academic side, obviously you'll have an academic advisor making sure that you're taking the correct coursework that's going to be helping you to progress towards your degree. Pardon. We'll also have academic support. So tutoring for students for whom English is not their first language. We also have our writing center, which can be very beneficial. Graduate students in our journalism or English programs are there to be able to help students refine their writing and become more clear in the way that they express themselves in written English. But then even beyond kind of that academic piece, as international students, you'll have support on our campus through our International Student and Scholar Services team, making sure that you have the support that you need and that you understand the rights and responsibilities that come with a US student visa. And then as you kind of move through your Mizzou career, career services will become one that you really start to look to. So this is offices that exist in all of the different academic units on our campus that are there to help connect students with kind of the next step. So that piece post-graduation, if that's an internship, if that's taking advantage of the OPT or optional practical training that comes with your US student visa and working in the US after graduation, career services offices are there to help throughout. And so here's kind of where it all comes together, right? The outcomes for our students. So at Mizzou, we're very proud to have a successful career outcome rate of 92%. So that means 92% of our students within 6 months of graduation, we're either working or on to further education. When we look at individual areas on our campus, we actually see outcome rates that can be higher. So some of the programs like journalism, business, we actually see those start to rise towards 95, 98%. So again, showing that Mizzou graduates are certainly career ready and in demand. The chart on the right, this kind of gives an idea of what students study as opposed to where they end up working. And again, we've kind of throughout this talked about how experiential learning certainly contains an interdisciplinary component to it, to where if you're, say, studying in one area that doesn't necessarily lock you into a career that can only look there. So it's really going to be one where, as we see that knowledge is something that really doesn't get constrained by fields, students are able to take the knowledge that they take off of our campus and really put it to work in several different ways that they would choose to. And so now, as we're kind of coming to the end here, I do want to cover a little bit of what the COVID-19 pandemic and what Mizzou's response to that has been. So at Mizzou, we are a school that has a rolling admission, but we have already gone out and looked at ways that we're going to be able to extend our deadline to be able to accept documentation from students, and particularly international students who have been going through school closures and have had difficulty maybe resuming their studies and may have extended periods to finish their final year. We've also began accepting the Duolingo English test, knowing that with students that need to show English proficiency and the number of closures of testing centers for both TOEFL, for IELTS, for some of the other typically English exams, that the Duolingo exam that can be taken at home, we've moved to accept that for students for the fall 20 application year. We've got 2 links posted here as well that kind of give a more robust look at everything that Mizzou is doing. The first one is specifically our admissions office and what some of the changes that we have looked at. The second shows what the overall campus response has been. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now with students who are maybe scheduled to sit for exams or are wondering what their exam schedule is going to look like if you're in a Cambridge program or if you're in an IB program. We did see earlier this week where, or pardon me, last week, where College Board came out and looked at AP exams now being able to be actually sat for at home. But we know that this is an unprecedented situation, and so as an admissions office, we're looking at how we can still maintain our high standards, but that we can also accommodate students that we know are going through a very difficult time in trying to make sure that they're able to finish their secondary school career and able to test and receive the scores and marks and potentially credits that they would deserve based on that. So before we close up and kind of look at some of our some questions that we have that have come through, I did want to point out that we have a great team of international ambassadors. So you can see photos here on the right, and you may recognize a couple that were also featured in the presentation. But these are all current Mizzou undergraduate international students that are available for, well, whatever your favorite way of communication, if that's a WeChat, if you'd prefer to do Skype or some sort of video call, but students that are able to give you what it is, the student experience. So obviously, when I speak to students, my point of view is of that of an admissions officer, and some students maybe want to know a little bit more about what is the day-to-day life or what is the student experience there. So we'd invite you to reach out and connect with any of these students. We would ask for a little bit of patience right now. As we mentioned on the last slide, right now, Mizzou campus has actually moved to all remote learning as well as remote working. So our campus itself is become very sparsely populated, and a lot of our students, including many of the students that are part of our ambassador team, are currently either maybe relocating back to their home countries if they've chosen, or are continuing to stay here in the Columbia community, in Columbia, Missouri. But their daily routine has certainly changed significantly over the last week or the last couple weeks. So we would ask that if you do connect with them, that maybe you have a little bit of patience, but they'll certainly get back to you. All right, so we've got some time now to answer questions. I see we have a couple that have come in. We'll repeat that if there's anything that you think of that you'd sooner ask me later, or that you'd like to get in contact with me, my contact information is here, as well as then obviously our QR code for our WeChat account. So you can pop on there, get a little bit of an idea of what Mizzou looks like. And we'll take a look now at the questions that have come in. And so the first one, we have a question about what types of extracurriculars enable students to stand out in the application process. So this is one that we're looking at students as they apply to university. What can they be doing at the secondary level that's going to make them really stand out to an admissions committee? And the first thing that I would say about that is that you want to be able to show that you have a wide range of extracurricular activity in your secondary school portfolio. And you want to be able to have a mix of, say, clubs or interest areas where you're a member, where you're someone that's participating, but also ideally be able to try and show that you have some leadership ability. So trying to be an officer maybe in some of the extracurriculars that you engage in. You're also going to want to make sure that these extracurricular activities that you do to strengthen your application are things that are related to the field of study where you're wanting to go. So if you're a student who's looking to study engineering, then it might not be quite as important for you to highlight that membership in the film club, right? Although we would love to see that, we do want to see a well-rounded candidate, well-rounded applicant, but we really would want to see, hopefully, that you're maybe being involved in build projects or some sort of activity within the field that you're looking to study. We have another question here that's asking about sports scholarships. So for a university like mine, and this is going to be one that's going to be very dependent on each university that you talk to, depending on what governing body that they report to within athletics in the U.S. So the University of Missouri, we're what's called NCAA Division I. That's kind of the largest level of competition. And so all of those decisions about athletic scholarships are actually going to be made by the individual coaches of the teams that our university has. So it's possible for students to be able to earn athletic scholarships, but it's also one that those can be pretty difficult to earn. As an example, our team typically has several of our U.S. football players who go on to play in the NFL, as well as our basketball team typically sends several players that go on and play in the NBA. So that kind of level of competition is where we're at, and it can be very difficult to earn those, but it is possible. We have another good question here, and pardon me, I'm going to grab a drink real quick. And so the question here is, are AP courses important to the application? Yes and no. So for us, when we're looking at applications, and again, each university will kind of answer this in their own way, but I think most would be pretty in line with what I'm saying here. We want to see that whatever system a student is in, that they have really pushed themselves to take as much coursework and the most difficult coursework that they can within the system that they're studying. So we know that not all students are going to be able to have an IB diploma program. Not all students are going to be able to have AP coursework. Not everyone's going to be able to sit for 4 Cambridge A-level exams. We know that depending on the system that you're in, we just want to see that you were maximizing your opportunities, that you weren't shying away from any academic challenges, so that you were making sure that you actually took out of everything that was possible with what you're doing. Now, that said, with AP courses, one of the big advantages to those can be that like Cambridge A-level exams and like some IB coursework, you can actually often earn credit that kind of can replace some of your first year general education requirements on different campuses, depending on your performance there. So they can be important to the application, but if you're a student studying in a different system, we're not going to make that comparison against someone else who maybe is studying in a system that allowed them to take AP coursework. And then we have one other question here. It asks, do we have to take physics in order to get into the animal science program? Very similar to my last answer. It's one where we don't have a hard rule that says physics is going to be required for animal science. Now, engineering, different story, but animal science itself, we would be much more concerned about students' scores in biology and chemistry that are going to be more of a basis for that area. But in the holistic review process, we're again going to be asking ourselves, why didn't the student choose to take physics if it was offered? So we want to see students that choose to challenge themselves, that they go after the most difficult parts of the curriculum that's available to them in secondary school, but it isn't one where we have on our campus anyway, a hard line where we would say that students looking at this program would have to take physics. For animal science, we would be much more concerned to see that the student had strong marks and had done all that they could in biology and chemistry. All right, and we have one more that came in here. It says, asks if subject SATs are required for engineering. Very good question, and this is one, again, going to depend on university to university. At our university, we are actually test optional for all of our international students. And we were test optional even prior to some of what's happened this year with the COVID-19 pandemic. So for us, we do not require subject SATs. We actually, in fact, do not require SAT at all. We're optional in that case, so students can decide to submit those. And we do, when we're looking at scholarship awards, we do take SAT tests into consideration, but we do not actually look at them for overall admission. Some great questions. And here we say, what activities would you recommend for someone interested in writing? So if it's someone who's looking at wanting to improve their writing skills, certainly reading is a big side of that. So the input side of being able to have a wide range of inputs where you're able to read and get a feel for other activities, and then being able to find someone that you know, the constant process of improvement. So writing, revising, having someone that you trust to kind of bounce ideas off of, or pieces that you've written, be those essays or fictional short stories, whatever it may be, but having a good sounding board, if you will. So being able to actually write and then receive feedback as part of that revision process can be very helpful. And then we have a question, how can I know the School of Journalism in the University of Missouri more? We would be happy to introduce you to some students that are studying there. So the student ambassador group that I showed the slide just a minute ago, several of those students in that group study with our Missouri School of Journalism, so we can certainly connect you with the student there. In fact, one of our Chinese student members of that group is currently studying in the Missouri School of Journalism, so that would be a great place to start. It's also one where you can follow up with me, and I'd be happy to connect you specifically with someone from our School of Journalism, as well as to just provide you some more information myself about it. So yeah, hopefully hear from you after this presentation. And then we have one other question. Any tips to make your personal statement stand out? So with personal statements, I think kind of rule number one is to make sure that you are writing about something that you're very passionate about. Obviously, it's a personal statement. So for those of us on the admissions side, we want to use that document as a way to really kind of get beyond what we can learn on a transcript and what we can kind of see from your academic records that are going to be part of your application project. The personal statement is for you to kind of show us you, right? So to go beyond just what numbers might look like, or what some of your coursework choices or some of your extracurricular activities are going to show us that you're interested in, but your personal statement is for something for you to really come out. So my tip number one for making it stand out is just make it something that you're passionate and excited about writing. Don't look to simply try and follow a cookie cutter recipe, or to try and recreate what may be something that you know has been a very successful formula for maybe other students from your school, or ones that you've read about, or friends that you have that are working on it. It's going to be different for every person. There's not something that is just here's the formula for it, but it has to be something that really is coming from that individual. So again, the biggest way to make your personal statement stand out is to make it personal, is to make it you, right? Allow that admissions committee to get to know you better over the course of that page or a couple pages that you're writing, so that they can really see if you're going to be someone who is a good fit for their campus. And we have, what is your school spirit? What values are important to the school? So you can kind of see in my background here, which is a imported Zoom background. The flags hanging from those columns there are actually some of the different core values of our university. So respect, responsibility. These are things that we try to instill throughout all that we do on our campus. So you see on my last slide here, that's Truman. So Truman the tiger. We like to say that we're fierce, like a tiger, but then also that we are a campus that certainly values diversity, that values having a global perspective in all that we do. So it's one where, you know, when we looked at the slide earlier about Mizzou alternative breaks, I think that's also something that really shows what Mizzou's school spirit is, that we are a school that likes to be globally engaged, that likes to give back, that we have students who understand that they are part of a larger world and that they'd like to make sure and give back to that. And we've got one more question that came in here. Do you have an average IB score for students who are accepted in previous years? That is not something that we actually figure and publish. Internally, though, typically we're looking at students that are somewhere above the 32 to 33 IB point range. For students that are able to score scores of 5 or higher in any of their HL courses, we actually provide students with credit on our campus. So typically being able to knock out some of those first year general education courses, depending on what your IB scores look like. Some great questions. Really appreciate everybody taking time and thought to put into those. And I think we're kind of coming to the end of our time here today. If you do have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in. And if not, then I'll be sure to follow up with you all after the presentation if you have any more information that you'd like to receive, or if you just have questions that maybe come to you after the presentation today that you'd like to ask at a later time. Yeah, thanks everyone for participating, and look forward to being in touch after the presentation today. Thanks. So just had one other question that came in, and it asks, is SAT required for scholarships? So on our campus, as I mentioned, we are test optional for admissions purposes. So students do not have to submit SAT for us to review for admission. But for our automatic scholarships out of our office, yes, we do have SAT minimums that are required for that. So students would need to provide us with SAT scores if they would like to be considered for some of our automatic scholarships.